What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. It's Trey with Trey's Trades. Going to give my thoughts on how the market's looking right now. Go over some current events that are going on, CPI coming into tomorrow, as well as the tariff deals, or I suppose ceasefire, if you want to call it that took place between China and the States over the weekend. And I guess that's about it. If you want to like the video, go ahead. If you want to subscribe, go ahead. If not, do what you got to do, man. So let's just start off by talking about the current events of things. China and U.S. tariff truce took place over the weekend, and this is pretty huge for the market, as you can tell by this massive gap up that we got today. The SPY ended up closing up 3.3% and even pushed a little bit higher than we opened. We opened near 581.60 or so and ended up closing at 582.99. So a pretty nice move. You got an inverse head and shoulders intraday that ended up pushing a little bit of a bear flag kind of look, or a bull flag kind of look here into the close. Traded sideways, pushed into the close. It's not a bad look, but this came off of the U.S. and China tariff truce, and the details of that go as such. The U.S. lowered tariffs on most imports from 145% to 30%. China lowered from 125 to 10, and this is going to be a 90-day truce, and you're expecting to have ongoing negotiations between the States and China during that period of time. Now, the reason this seems important to me is big investors, or big money as it sits right now, has been buying into the stock market religiously over the last couple of weeks. I mean, this has been a hell of a rally, and I would say a hated rally amongst retail investors. I've been keeping an eye on Twitter and sort of the sentiment of things since we've popped up back here. And I think people expected a nice rally off of this insane 10% green day on the SPY way back here. But I do not think people expected us to continue to run for, how many days has it been now? Let's just measure. From here, the day after till now, you have had 21 straight, essentially, days of uptrend, right? And if you want to call this little pullback right here, this bull flag, a pullback, I suppose you could. But it really wasn't a very deep retrace. If we were to take from this higher low right here to the peak of this bull flag, you didn't even get a 236 retracement, right? This is not a very strong pullback. I wouldn't consider this to be any sort of major relief. I would call this a consolidation before continuing the move up. So this has been a hated rally, and big money's been buying into it. And why this matters, the China and U.S. tariff truce, is this is going to really determine a lot moving forward, in my opinion, on whether or not China and the U.S. can come to some sort of agreement or some sort of deal in the long term. Like, obviously, this 90-day truce is great. In the short term, you're getting some relief, you're getting a rally. But what big money is really going to want to see out of this is whether or not they can come to an agreement on tariffs moving forward. So I'm assuming you're going to see a million headlines and a million tweets out of Trump and media sources about how those ongoing negotiations are. I know that in the past, you've gotten a lot of whiplash in terms of what the negotiations have looked like. Like, some news sources are saying they're going awfully. Some news sources are saying they're going spectacular. What I think you really need to pay the most attention to, myself, or what I'm going to be paying the most attention to, is just how the charts look and how big money's reacting to these headlines. It's really whiplashy. I don't like the market being so news-driven, but it's just the market we're in right now. So if it's conditions that you're uncomfortable with, size down, be careful about things. But this has been a hell of a rally. We also have CPI data going into tomorrow. It's going to release at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, so 1 hour before market open. We're expecting to see a 2.8% year over year in a CPI rate, or just inflation, essentially. I don't think tariffs are likely to influence this in the short term. So if you're looking for tariffs to bring that number higher, I don't think that's likely. And energy as a whole has been on a downward trend. So I don't think that you're going to see some out of the water crazy CPI data. Like, if it came in at like 3.5, 3.3, I think that'd be kind of surprising. To me, I think you're going to get your sort of expectation there, that 2.8, maybe 2.9, 3.0. For the market to pull back, or for big money to look at this in a negative light, I think you would really need to miss here. I think that buyers are very excited about this U.S. and China truce on what could have been some trade wars, to be quite frank. So look at that going into tomorrow. If you've got positions going into tomorrow, there's not much I can do to help you now, or not much you can do for yourself, to be honest. Just kind of have to see what happens. But pay very close attention to CPI. That is going to affect prices of all commodities as we go into the open tomorrow. So with that being said, I want to look at some charts and just see what things are looking like. SPY on the daily gapped up and went. And this is pretty much exactly what you want to see if you're a bull. I personally was more on the camp of, this is looking like it should probably pull back and retrace. Like I would have loved to seen this candle gap up and then come back down to form some sort of right shoulder here. And I don't think this is necessarily out of the equation, but you are certainly above the neckline of this inverse head and shoulders pattern that I've been watching pretty closely on the SPY. That isn't to say that it can't come back down and form a right shoulder eventually, but this is a pretty nice, clean daily candle here. You got some volume. The volume upticked on the daily time frame, so that's a really nice start. And if we were to look at the weekly candles, which I haven't done yet, let's just pull it up real quick and see how it's looking. If you continue on this run and it continues to push throughout the week, I wouldn't be surprised to see us come back up to like 608 here eventually. If you're a bull, that's really, I mean, there's not a lot of space between 585 or so and probably like $600. I mean, there's not a lot of trading that's taking place between 585 and 600. I mean, this is going to be really a nice level to keep an eye on moving forward. So going into tomorrow, levels that I would probably keep an eye on would be 580, 170, and maybe this is easier to see on the hourly time frame. 580, it looks like, and 584.64. So you can just say 581 and 585 on the dot. These are key levels that I think you can base risk on, either a short or a long. But something to keep an eye on, and something I actually talked about on my live stream today, is that a lot of bearish patterns or bearish setups have been getting invalidated. So I'd just be cautious. We are still in an uptrend. If you are a bear and you're trying to time the top and get a nice short down, wait until you got some confirmation that we have broken this downtrend at the very least. And if I was to draw that out, we got some work to do. It's pretty far separated away. Now, the good news is you probably want to see a little bit of a cool off or a little bit of a consolidation. So I think two things could probably happen. I think one, for bull case scenario, you could sort of trade sideways back and forth between 581, 585 before a nice move up. Or two, if CPI comes out tomorrow and it's great, or the market perceives it as great, right? Because that's all that really matters is market expectations. You could just continue to push on up. Now, I don't think that's the more healthy move. I still feel like this is a really extended move and you're due for some sort of pullback relatively soon here. But the market can stay insolvent longer than you can stay rational, I think is the saying that they go by, right? So, I mean, this is a green candle. This is a nice daily gap up and go type of candle here. It defended the gap, and 585 is the next level to watch. Now, Bitcoin is, to me, a good assessment of what kind of environment we're in. And when Bitcoin is running, I consider it to be a risk-on environment. But something to keep an eye on here, there's two ways that I think this sort of setup can go. These are daily candles, mind you. I think either one, you can get a cup and handle type of setup here where you consolidate sideways for some time before an eventual move up. And if that's what happens, I think that's going to play out in the markets a little bit. Like if Bitcoin trades sideways and forms out a handle for that cup, I think that stocks could do the same thing where you trade sideways back and forth between, it could even come down to 576. Like that wouldn't surprise me. Maybe you bounce back and forth in this kind of channel and you push on up from there. I still want to pull back. Like I don't love trying to buy up here. Like I would much rather buy at a discount down. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I would love to take some risk at a right shoulder down there. But if it doesn't do that and it just trades sideways, Bitcoin trades sideways, I think you can get the same thing out of the SPY. So I'd watch out for a cup and handle type setup here on Bitcoin. I think that's certainly possible. Another reality that you're facing is as it sits right now, right, since we haven't formed that handle yet, is you are looking a little bit like a triple top. You've gotten a clear rejection here, many, many, many rejections here, and a rejection here. And the volume was certainly higher on Bitcoin today on this rejection candle. So that's something to keep an eye on. As it sits right now, treat resistance as resistance until otherwise. Treat the structure as it is until you see something different. This is a rejection candle, right? This is a very clear, hey, we tested this supply zone near 106,040 or so, and you've rejected. And if it's to come back down, typically on a cup and handle, you want to see like a 382 retracement, but you could just come down to a 236, which would makes some sense. I would like to see it handle out more so like that. But I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe this 90-day truce thing, there's not a whole lot more news that the market has to run on. So it just kind of, you see things slow down and maybe slightly pull back and consolidate before some sort of news comes out about the US and China having come to a long-term agreement on tariffs, and that just sends things to the moon. That could certainly happen because I do still think that the overall trend of stocks is going to be up. It appears that big money is betting that the stock market's going to be fine and that things are going to recover and that the tariff deals are going to get done. Why do I think that? Because they're just showing it, right? Big money is stepping in. There is obviously a lot of buyers here. The day that Trump came out and made his big announcement here, you got a massive spike in volume. This very much looks like a spring. And what this reminds me of on the SPY is, I think I was making videos way back when. It reminds me of the day that a war was announced. I think it was this right here, this day. I can't remember the exact war, but it was announced that there was a war going on. And once that announcement came out, there was no more uncertainty, and people stepped right back into the stock market. And this was the literal bottom. This was a spring. It was a nasty green day. We were up 2.64%, which is nothing in comparison to the 10% green day we got here that acted as a spring. But it's obvious to me that buyers are stepping in and saying, I think we're going to be all right. So I think the overall trend is going to be up. I'd still just like to see some retracements or at least some consolidation before another eventual move up. But you did break out of a bull flag, and if things are going to move, they certainly could. And this 600-ish level, 599 essentially, something to keep an eye on. So Bitcoin, I would like to see a cup and handle for bulls, something like this. If that doesn't happen, the first level I'm watching after that is probably going to be about here. Seems like a very clear support resistance flip. You've had it treated as resistance. You've had it treated as support. You've had it treated as support here, treated as resistance here, treated as support here. It's just a big level, 91,517. Above that, this is another big one. Tap, 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 tap. Both treated as support and resistance. 99,635 is obviously an important level to watch. Now, I've also got NVIDIA and Tesla pulled up. Tesla, I don't like as much the daily candle as I do NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA looks really nice. But Tesla did get, a push. This is looking like it's breaking out of this bull flag here. And I think this looks actually really comparable to this kind of sequence back here where you consolidated in a range for an extended period of time. You could consider this a huge consolidation range comparable to back here. It treated, I would say the levels were slightly different. This held up as demand fairly well, especially here. This is obviously sort of an island bottom that was treated as great support, great demand, where buyers stepped in and just sort of loaded the boat on Tesla before a huge move up. And you got kind of the same thing here, right? And not all these daily candles are super clean. I wouldn't say this is exactly the same as here because you did end up gapping and closing higher than the gap up here. But this does look a lot like sort of this flag breakout, right? You broke out of the flag, you gapped, and then you got some really nasty moves off of this. So it would not surprise me, even though this daily candle isn't spectacular, to see Tesla continue to run. The only difference here to me is the volume. Volume stepped up aggressively back here when Tesla broke out of this bull flag and gapped and goed. The volume was really nice, but the volume was a little bit drier today. So that's a bit of a red flag to me, especially considering the fact that volume was starting to increased here, increased on the breakout, but pulled back on this, what kind of looks like a hanging man or abandoned baby setup. I always call them a dumpster baby, but essentially you just got this gap and rejection right beneath a really critical support resistance flip. So I think there's a case to be made for bears here as well, to take control of this 325 level. Why is 325 important? On the daily, you've got rejection here, rejection, 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 rejection. It's been supported as both support and resistance on multiple occasions. So if they're going to step in somewhere, I think this is the spot to do it, for sure. And let's just see where this lines up on a fib retracement. If you were to take the high from way back here at 490 to the low, you are right at a 0.5. So there is a good amount of confluence here for bears to step in and get some sort of retracement back down. But keep in mind, we are in a bullish environment. Like, there have been a lot of bearish setups that have been getting invalidated. We are in bullish territory now. Tesla is no longer in a downtrend. right? This is a very clear downtrend breakout. You got it actually on Friday last week. So just be cautious. Even if this looks like, hey, sellers may step in here, a lot of bearish setups have been getting invalidated. So just be careful. I know this doesn't say like it's going to go up or it's going to go down, but I want to give scenarios for both because I think both are possible. And that's just how the stock market works. But Nvidia to me looks really nice. This is a nice looking setup. Volume increase today. Today, the daily candle broke out of a major downtrend that's been taking place since way back in January of this year. Let me just adjust this line a little bit better. I'd say this is probably how you're looking. About that. It's a clean breakout. I mean, that just looks nasty. And not only did it break out, but it held and pushed above a pretty major support resistance flip right here at 122 or so. If we were to adjust this just a hair, no, I think it's pretty good right where it was at, to be honest. You just gap and win, right? This actually showed a lot of strength relative to other names today as well. Like if I was to pull up the SPY or even Tesla in the 15-minute does not look as nice as Nvidia does. Nvidia on the 15-minute time frame really just kind of set up a rounding bottom. Maybe even on the 5, you can see like an inverse head and shoulders type look. You've got a head here, left shoulder, sort of high right shoulder, but nonetheless just like pushed here. Very obvious bull flag off of a run, followed by some just trading sideways. Not a whole lot happened after that intraday. I couldn't get above that sort of pre-market high level. But I think the daily candle on Nvidia looks good for continuation. Like if we're going to get some continuation out of the SPY tomorrow, I think that Nvidia is a name that is going to get a lot of traction. That's something I would pay attention to. And it's nice because it's right around an area, if we don't get some sort of crazy gap up tomorrow, that you can base risk. Like if I was to take a trade on Nvidia long, I would say, okay, 122 is a very clear area that I can base risk. So let's say we come into tomorrow morning and sometime in the first hour or two, you get some sort of like inverse head and shoulders where it sort of pushes and you get a right shoulder here. This is an area where I would say, all right, I'm going to take calls. And if we break beneath and a 15-minute candle closes underneath here, I'm going to get out. And if not, I'm going to see what happens. And I think there's a decent amount of upside available here on Nvidia. I mean, you could really push this probably to about 127. So a 4-point move, and a 4-point move, you can make a lot of money for sure. So that's my long setup I'd watch for going into tomorrow. I know that I talked about Tesla and Nvidia last week, but they're just names that I watch because they're liquid and they've got nice charts. I think it's a good trade setup. And in Tesla, actually is the opposite to me, which is funny because last week I liked Tesla more long and Nvidia more short. But Tesla, I don't like this daily candle as much. This looks like an opportunity for sellers to step in if the market is weak tomorrow to try and get some sort of retracement. Now, does that mean you're going to get a hard sell-off, like a V-shape back down, something like this? I don't think so. But if you're looking to sort of get in and go, like hit and run, scalp, something intraday, get in for 15, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever, I think that there's some opportunity to maybe even retrace this down to like 304, which is a nice size move back down from 325 if you get that opportunity to short it there. On the hourly time frame, let's back it back down. It did defend the gap. That is bullish. I mean, it came back down and even tested the gap and held it. So for now, that's good. But it has not set new highs yet, which is something that you want to see off of this gap and go sort of setup. Because for now, it's just gapped. It's held the gap, but bulls have not stepped back in to continue to push price up, which is something you need to see happen, or at least what I want to see happen. So if it comes up and it double tops, or it sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Sweeps, meaning pushes really high but V-shapes back down. This is something I would look to short for sure. That is a nice short setup. The last chart that I want to look at is actually GameStop. GameStop didn't look very good intraday until the last maybe couple hours of the day, and I didn't get to see it. When I hopped off stream, it was about noon, so that would be about here. And right at noon, it was in like a falling wedge type setup. Like you definitely have, you can see the view this is like a falling wedge or even like a bearish triangle, I guess, right? You could view this as like a flat bottom where you're just setting lower highs and maintaining equal lows. But it broke up regardless if this is a bearish or bullish setup and recovered all of intraday. Like it really just V-shaped all the way back up. And this daily candle isn't beautiful, but this is the first time since back here on the 23rd of April that GameStop has tried to break above this 28.30 level and hasn't been nastily rejected. So I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow it takes another stab at 28.33, and above that, I think you can see a stab at this 29.80 level. So I think there's some opportunity for calls there for anybody that is interested in playing GameStop calls if you do get above 28.33. Now, if you do, I wouldn't just like willy-nilly buy calls off the open and hope that it happens. But if you can get above 28.33 and it comes back down and toe taps and you get some sort of nice 5 or 15-minute candle where sellers try to push down, but it gets swept and pushed back up, this is a nice area to take risk on calls. Meaning, hey, if price breaks back beneath this on a 15-minute candle and it holds, I'm going to get out. And if not, I'm gonna hold. And your target, or my target, would be somewhere along the lines of that 29.79 level. I mean, there's not a lot of liquidity between 28.30 and 29.80. There's just not a lot of, there's got all this back here, so it might not be a super fast push up, but the only other major resistance point that I can really see is probably here. And this is more of a zone. This isn't even really just a level. This is like a zone where you've gotten a lot of chops. So all this has been swept a lot in the past. So maybe if you want to take a more conservative approach, you could say 29.10-ish would be the level that I would look to start taking profits, because there's been a lot of rejections that have happened here in the past. There are a lot of sellers sitting up here waiting to take a stab at things. But I think there's some opportunity here. This is a cleaner close than I was expecting to get today. GameStop does announce earnings on the 6th of June. And if you want my take on it, man, I think that they're waiting to announce whether or not they bought Bitcoin for their earnings call. And if they do that, and if they actually bought Bitcoin back when they were talking about it, let's say back here in like the 70s or 80s, they'd be up a really substantial amount of money. If they put $1 billion into it, or even 800 million or 500 million, what's the P&L on this? I'm just going to take like the median here, 83,000 up to where it is now. That's a 22% move. So what's 22% of 500 million? Like 100 and some change? 100 million profit. If they did $1 billion, that's like 200 million. That's a really solid quarter, man. They wouldn't be sitting too bad. So that's why I've got this marked off. I think this is something interesting to watch, and I think that could be a nice catalyst that could actually push GameStop up past this $30 mark. I think that, anything can happen. I'm not going to say that you need a catalyst to get a move, because it hasn't needed one in the past. But if you're looking from a fundamental standpoint on what could get you above like 34 and try to push up to these like really untested, illiquid areas past like 33 all the way up to $65, I think it's a Bitcoin profit. Like that could be a really good reason to send some buyers into this stock from just a fundamental perspective. So I think it's a chart to watch, man. I would keep GameStop on watch. This is not an ugly looking chart by any means. I do not hate how the candle closed on this whatsoever. So I guess to wrap things up, we've talked about a lot today. I don't think SPY looks bad. I think this is a really nice daily candle, especially considering how these last two previous candles looked. In hindsight now, I thought this looked like a failed breakout on this bull flag. What it really looks like was a breakout retest go off of that tariff news. So maybe there's not a whole lot to expect from, Trump and China and tariffs moving forward. Maybe they make some deals with other countries. I think that's probably what could give you some moves back up from here moving forward. But I think what you really want to see over the next 90 days is some significant progress between China and the States to push this up into some new all-time highs. Yeah, I think that's all I got. You guys take it easy. I will be streaming tomorrow from 9 to noon Eastern. Hope you have a good day. Take it easy.